Information coming from Czech intelligence in the year 2022 shocked France. According to this knowledge, one of the best journalists at Le Canard Enchaîné was a Prague intelligence agent. According to the records, Pipa leaked a lot of really harmful information from the STB archives. Unexpected secrets and information are frequently revealed by coincidences alone. Similar to how finding hidden treasures, secrets, and occasionally incriminating evidence in cases that have baffled investigators for years is frequently the result of coincidences. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union and Eastern Camp, many secrets became public knowledge. These are the Cold War's best-kept secrets. For the benefit of governments or organizations, they gather and analyze sensitive information. They carry out covert operations, infiltration, and other forms of surveillance to obtain information about prospective threats or to their advantage. Because of the often secretive nature of their employment, it calls for extreme discretion and professionalism. They could work covertly or assume different identities. They need a high level of skill, training, and mental toughness for their work, which can be dangerous. Their practice frequently involves emotional deceit and manipulation. It was possible to get answers to many concerns regarding matters that remained unresolved for many decades by looking into the records of those regimes that fell and crumbled. In fact, what seemed unthinkable was exposed by the excavation operations. A young Czech history scholar by the name of Jean Clémentin was one of those who helped find the documents from that period of time. He had access to the records of the Czech State Security Service, known as STB, an intelligence agency established in 1945. In 2019, Jean Clémentin was looking for documents pertaining to the 68-year history that the Czech Republic and Slovakia shared together. It was natural to stumble upon documents pertaining to Czech intelligence operations, particularly in Western Europe, and the connections the Czech intelligence agency had with other intelligence operations from the communist system. These documents include files and names, many of which are fictitious, although they are associated with various nations, locations, and industry sectors. A file with the name Pipa and the number 41582 next to it is one of the documents that Jean Clémentin found. The true identity of this agent Pipa in the Cold War archives is not revealed by anything in these papers. There are frequently Frenchmen who are recruited by foreign intelligence, particularly Soviet intelligence and intelligence that is aligned with France. The fact that a French spy was working for the Czech intelligence sparked interest, and as a result, the French paid close attention to this file following the Cold War. There were concerns regarding some French citizens' involvement with the intelligence agencies in several nations of the Eastern Bloc ruled by the Soviet Union, particularly journalists. Jean Clémentin, a young historian from the Czech Republic, had no trouble finding this agent and identifying the person using the alias Pipa. For the first time, there will be concrete proof that one of these journalists engaged in espionage on behalf of a foreign intelligence agency. The real name of Pipa was determined through a review of materials found in Pipa's file and in associated files. He worked as a journalist for the well-known and hugely influential satirical monthly Le Canard Enchaîné, which covered French politics. Indeed, several politicians who were the targets of the pen's articles and cartoons of Le Canard Enchaîné expressed concern. The signature of Jean Clémentin, which Jean Clémentin used to sign his caustic pieces, was one of the signatures that rose to fame. He was well liked by the general public and a well-known figure on French television. Clémentin, or Clémentin, had a captivating personality when interacting with others and did not try to hide his seriousness when addressing problems and the people involved in them with a mix of sarcasm and criticism. The weekly Le Canard Enchaîné's editorial line was always marked by this particular writing style, and his articles were eagerly anticipated by the publication's more than 500,000 readers every Wednesday. The French then learned that the person whose publications and lectures they had been looking forward to had actually been a spy for Czech intelligence between 1957 and 1969. His work for the STB was kept secret and lost in the communist spy agency's files. In the materials examined by historian Jean Clémentin, it was revealed that Pipa, which is Czech for tap, provided the Czech intelligence with a wealth of information in reports that he submitted to Prague at regular intervals. Based on what Jean Clémentin had uncovered, what the latter discovered was only made public in 2022 by journalist Vincent Jouvert in Obs magazine. The changes that Jean Monon, or Jean Clémentin, through during his life's many stages are now understood by what has been discovered. A traditional Catholic family made Jean Clémentin into the world on May 21, 1924, in Calvados, Normandy, in northern France. His father was a farmer, and he enrolled in the Jesuit educational system, studying commerce as well as German among other languages. He traveled to Germany to work as a volunteer after the Second World War, and at that time, he was deeply ingrained with extreme right-wing ideology. He then left Germany, enlisted in the French army, and was assigned to Indochina, a French territory. Due to his affiliation with the French military propaganda department, he did not serve in the combat ranks for very long. Later, he was employed by the Associated Press as a correspondent. It appears that his time in Indochina exposed him to the atrocities committed by the colonial rulers there, which caused him to gravitate toward and develop a deep relationship with the communist world. He worked for left-leaning journals and magazines like Combat, Les Temps Modernes, Les Cahiers Internationaux, Regards, and Libération after moving back to France in 1950. He developed experience and expertise in journalistic writing through his employment in these media outlets. He joined the weekly Canard Enchaîné at the end of 1950, where he soon started to identify with it and developed into a key figure. In fact, he earned the reputation of being France's most knowledgeable journalist thanks to his work for this satirical weekly. After this path, what would lead to suspicion that Jean Clémentin had another face, a spy agent for the intelligence of a foreign country? That hidden side of his personality is what was revealed, 50 years after the events, by documents of the Czech State Security Service that were released by the Czech authorities. There is proof that Agent Pipa was paid to spy for the Communist Republic of Czechoslovakia in those documents. He was tasked with conducting espionage operations in France, Britain, and what was then known as West Germany. These records expose several secrets, one of which is that Jean Clémentin was paid to produce fabricated news stories. According to Czechoslovak intelligence archives, Jean Clémentin was first recruited in 1954 when he met a Czech diplomat in Paris who was actually a Czechoslovak Republic intelligence agent in France. The two men immediately became close as the intelligence agent persuaded him to work with him, or, to put it another way, for the Czechoslovak intelligence. At the time, Jean Clémentin was a young man in his 30s. He might not have been aware when he accepted the offer made to him by the intelligence agent for the Czechoslovak Republic that he was starting down the path of treason. The Czechoslovak intelligence agent was aware that he had found a recruit who could supply verified information. Jean Clémentin had a network of connections that had reached the highest echelons of the French state machinery. Perhaps, he used his connections with army leaders at the staff command level to inform his friend of all developments involving the French forces stationed in Indochina. It was important knowledge. The extent to which its leak affected the direction of the war the French forces waged in Indochina, where they came up against communist resistance that had the backing of the communist camp, remained unknown. There is an explanation that the leaked secret information impacted the battlefields. In April of the year 1954, the Viet Minh forces launched their decisive attack, which is mentioned in the annals of history as the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, where the French forces suffered an unprecedented defeat. This battle ended the French presence in Indochina on May 7, 1954. Jean Clémentin did not initially get paid for the information he provided. Additionally, he wasn't quite ready to join the Communist Party. It's possible that his motivation came from his attempts to display his socialist beliefs. His only commitment seems to be to carry out espionage work. Additionally, he was aware that the Czechoslovak intelligence service's activities weren't just restricted to politics but might also include other fields, such as executing assassination operations if necessary. 4 Czechoslovak intelligence officers carried out assassination activities against the governor of Bas-Rhin in the French region of Alsace in 1957 as directed by the KGB, the Soviet Secret Service. The effort by the Czechoslovakian intelligence operatives to assassinate European politicians as they were attending a banquet at the governor's headquarters failed, and the governor's wife was slain instead of them. The governor's wife was injured 3 days after the celebration when a cigar box containing explosive cigarettes was not handed to the guests. The blame was placed on people who were labeled as neo-Nazis. But top-secret records show that Czechoslovak intelligence was responsible for the operation, which was intended to undermine the European continent's construction efforts. Does Jean Clémentin's material that was supplied to Czechoslovak intelligence help to explain how the Bas-Rhin operation was planned? He started taking money that year in exchange for the information he gave the Czechoslovaks. Pipa now has access to France's highest levels of decision-making. The weekly Le Canard Enchaîné promoted him to the post of political officer at the same time that the Czechoslovak intelligence responded to his requests for money. He started producing pieces that were dictated to him by the Czech intelligence and publishing them in weekly columns with his name on them. In actuality, Soviet intelligence served as inspiration for the articles. According to the records, Jean Clémentin provided the Czechoslovakians with a total of 300 reports over the course of 270 meetings with the people assigned to contact him. The gatherings took place at busy pubs and cafes. The partnership between Jean Clémentin and Czechoslovak intelligence began and terminated without drawing any attention. The pieces written by Jean Clémentin were read by Le Canard Enchaîné readers for another 50 years. No one knew that he was a spy for the Czechoslovak intelligence, operating under the alias Pipa, even if some of them were aware that he was Jean Clémentin. On January 6, 2023, Jean Clémentin died at the age of 99, a year after his other face was revealed.